computer. Okay, we're starting on innovative technologies. I want you to take a piece of paper out and write down what are some innovative technologies and how could you find them. So if somebody gave you $500,000 and said, okay, what innovative technology would you want to bring into the classroom? How would you find out what those innovative technologies are? What are some new technologies, educational technologies that are out there? So on your piece of paper, write down what some of those innovative technologies are. And for those of you who just joined us, thinking, yes, there's one more person that's not here. I'm going to go back. Just bear with me. I'm going to go back. And what we're doing in this webinar is we are actually we have a piece of paper out. If you could take out a piece of paper and write down these topics. What are the technology tools that you use in your classroom? So if you're listening to this recorded video, if you could write down the technology tools you use in your classroom, okay? We're going to discuss that a little bit later. And the second thing I want you to write on the piece of paper is the best ways to learn. And you can use the video that you watched in Module 5 to actually guide you in your thinking. So write down what you got out of what are the best ways to learn. And we just talked about innovative technologies. So the last thing you're going to write in your paper is, say something new came out, some new technology, and you're wondering, what am I supposed to do with this? For example, the Echo just came out. Now, if you were given an Echo and said by your principal, I want you to figure out a way to use this Echo in the classroom to increase student learning or to increase student understanding, where would you go and how would you figure this out? So that is what I want you to write for the fourth topic, is how you would implement new technologies. So now we're going to go on, and as I'm continuing, you can, if you think of anything, just go ahead and jot it down. There are a lot of theories of educational technology, and as you read in the Spector book, chapters 9 and 10, there's lots of different theories. Now, I want you to remember that a theory is not a law. A theory is just somebody's idea that they think is a reason behind something, such as the theory of evolution is the reasoning behind why species change over time. Some people think it's true, some people think it's false. Same with educational theories. It kind of goes in waves. Like everybody's like for this theory, and then not so much. Another theory comes along, and then we go for that. But there's a lot of different instructional theories in educational technology. And one thing that I emphasized here, and I put this in bold, is that educational technologies need to best serve the needs of all students. And that's a kind of a big thing today, is trying to be inclusive of special needs students, inclusive of students who have different learning modalities, students who might have come from a different culture, and you need to serve them as well. So you have to think about that with educational technology. I'm going to tell you an example of something that happened to me when I was maybe only 5 years into teaching, is that we had a test for kindergartners about how they knew vocabulary words. And in our class was over half Hispanic, okay? So we have this test, and it's a visual test, and they're supposed to tell us the words of all these things in a picture. So we had a picture of a family with a barbecue, and on the barbecue was a steak. And there was, a table, and they were supposed to identify the mother, the father, the children, the barbecue, and the type of food that was on the barbecue. Well, we realized that most all the children, they did not know the word for steak. They hadn't had steak on a barbecue. Now, if we would have had, some taco shells there and some carne asada, because some of them said it was carne asada on the grill, we had to mark them wrong. Back then we weren't thinking about the cultural needs of the students. So whenever you put something together And educational technology involves visual things, audio content, and how you put them together in your classroom. You have to really keep that in mind. It says instructional design can play a large role in changing our learning environment to better support the development of higher level thinking skills. So as a teacher, think about what higher level thinking skills you can develop with the children by using the technology tools. I teach another class that goes way into how to think of higher level thinking questions and all of that. And so if you need help with that or whatever, you can always email me and I'll give you some tips or some materials from that course. Now, this is just a screenshot of the video that you watched called What's the Best Way to Learn? And one of the terms that they brought up, and they only brought up 2 terms, I believe, in this video, was expertise reversal effect. And what that means is that some people are like experts in a whole bunch of stuff. Like, for example, I will say that my son is really good with cars. He knows all the parts. He knows, what's in the engine, how the engine works, pistons, all this kind of stuff. He just talks all this vocabulary. And say if he was to teach like somebody else, like even me, about engines and everything, I would get what's called expertise reversal effect. He's telling me so much information that I can't grasp it all. I can't remember how an engine works or where the gas goes or anything because he's telling me everything all at once, Also, the expertise reversal effect can happen when somebody who already knows all about it is told, like if I was to tell my son, I'm going to teach you about engines. And I'm going to tell you that an engine is inside the hood. He would just like turn off because he feels like I'm not at his level. So expertise reversal effect happens at both of those ends. So I think that as teachers, we have to have a good medium as to how we chunk our information, how much we give to our students at a time, and to make sure that to do an assessment to make sure they're understanding what we're teaching them. So here I've got a slide on expertise reversal effect that you could read at your own leisure. I can get this out of the way here just a little bit. And I only highlighted one sentence out of this, and that is instructional techniques that are highly effective with inexperienced learners can lose their effectiveness and even have negative consequences when used with more experienced learners. In plain English, that means that you don't want to teach somebody more than they can, practically understand at one point. Otherwise, it's going to turn them off and they're not going to listen to anything. I'm sure we've all had classes where we've walked in and they're like, I remember walking into my advanced calculus class, and the first day the teacher just blew me away. And I'm like, what in the heck? So then I had to do a little review on my own, but you have to be sure that you're not overwhelming the learner. The other thing they talked about is deliberate practice, and this is so important. What it means is, before you start teaching kids all this stuff, do an assessment to find out what they already know. They don't want to listen to you repeat something that they already know. And as a math teacher, I realized that even though kids are at all different levels, you have to find kind of where most of them are at, and then teach to that group. And then you have to also individually or in small group, get the group that's a little bit higher and the group that's a little bit lower and work with them as well in small group. But deliberate practice is target on the things that the students don't know. And I have not been good at that class, because what I should have done for this presentation is given you a little quiz. What do you understand about Module 5? What do you not understand about Module 5? But I don't have all my viewers here with me when I give the webinar, so I actually didn't do that this time. But here is two things highlighted here. And this is, if you ever want to see what my sources are, if you click on this slide, the sources pop up, the link pops up. But it says that the term deliberate practice, it says here, let's see. This means that time is spent on the most effective activities to improve in performance. So if I was playing the piano and I was playing a piece and then in the middle of the song I got kind of stuck and then the rest of the song I could play, my deliberate practice would be on that part of the song that I don't know very well. And I need to practice and practice and practice and practice that part instead of just playing the whole song. And it's the same thing with the subject matter, is you need to deliberately practice the things that the kids can't do well, because then they will master the whole thing. Does that make sense? I mean, nod ahead. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay, good. Let's go on to what you, because we're going to talk about some of these things later when I take the slides off. But the week 5 discussion was taking a questionnaire about how do I learn best. So by finding out how you learn best might be helpful for you to understand that maybe you think you're a visual learner, but really you're an audio learner or whatever. But I challenge you to take those. If you've taken this quiz already, give me a thumbs up if you've already taken this quiz. Okay. If you have not, that's okay. You'll have time to take it, and it goes into different scenarios about what if, how would you learn this, how would you, learn that. So anyway, here's my scores. I took the quiz and I have, I'm all over the board. I had visual 6, audio 7, read write 4, kinesthetics 6. So I'm what they call a multi-faceted learner. I learn with all different methods, and you'll find out what methods you have. But what I want you to remember is that there's students in your classroom that learn with all the different types of modalities, and that when listed and categorized, there's over 70 different ways to learn. I didn't know that. I thought, you learned about the basic 5. There's 70 different ways to learn. That kind of overwhelmed me. Okay, assignment. I wanted to go over real quick key assignment number 3. And that is not coming up for another couple, let's see, 2.5 weeks. And so what you're supposed to do is create a proposal to your school or to your leadership team to incorporate some type of technology into your site. Okay, so so you have to be kind of creative and think, okay, what would be good for our school or whatever, and you need to justify why you'd have that proposal and have a timeline and what's your training and support plan, what are your projected outcomes, and your budget. Now, if you can do all of this, you can write a grant. And let me tell you that I am a success story with the grants. About every other grant that I went for technology, I got. And I would think of creative reasons why my classroom would need technology. One of the biggies was I wrote a grant to start computer programming at our school. And I would be the first computer programming teacher. And I wrote a grant to get a set of 35 brand new laptop computers for the kids, and also to put me through a little bit of training so I could learn how to do the computer programming. And I got the grant, and these are the things that I needed to do, is all these things to justify why this would be a good idea, and to have research-based justification. And as a student at the United States University, you have access to the library resources, which usually you have to pay for. There are all kinds of research sources, and if you don't know how to access them, you can call me or whatever, and I can walk you through those. But they do studies on, well, do kids work well with iPads with math? And if they do, what programs work best? And all these things. And there's lots of studies on these kinds of things. So I want you to start thinking about key assignment 3 number right now, because you have a couple weeks to think about it, and you can start collecting all this information. And then this one I put in here because it has to do with research. Now, when you research what kinds of technology you want to put in your classroom at your school, this is a site from ISTE. I don't know if you've heard of the ISTE organization. I can't remember what it stands for, but the T stands for technology. And they're really good with teachers and being a technology, kind of like a source. And this is one of the articles that they had out recently, very recently, January 2018, of the 9 hottest topics in educational technology. And I wanted to show you this because this is a good example of a research-based topics that they have. But you'll also find that there's false websites out there. And what they do is they say, here are the 9 hottest educational technology devices for 2018. And in them, they've included 3 of their own products. And the website is put out by HP. But you can't tell that until you go to the bottom of the page or whatever, that it's sponsored by HP. So be aware of that, because some websites are biased and you need to make sure your research is more, it's unbiased. Okay, so now I'm going to go back a little bit to some of our questions that we had and get a little of your feedback. So, and we'll start one at a time, so one of you can unmute your microphone. So let's start with Yvonne. You've been online before with us, so why don't you share what you have on your paper?
Okay, so technology tools that we use in our classroom. I wrote a projector, pencil and paper, but I stole that from you. A document camera, laptops, mice, but like really just a mouse. Yeah. Headphones, whiteboard, personal whiteboards that they have in their desk that they can use. Dry erase markers, because that really does help and help them learn. Textbooks for sure, and a computer, and my computer, the desktop.
Good, thank you so much. That is wonderful, wonderful list. Okay, you can mute now. Let's listen to Malika.
Yes. Okay, mine is pretty much like Yvonne's. Laptops, we have laptops. They're kind of old, but they're laptops. Whiteboards, document camera. We also have personal whiteboards. Let's see, dry erase markers. Of course, textbooks. I think that's about it.
Okay, good. So your lists were very similar. That's fantastic.
And a personal computer for a teacher.
Good. That's wonderful. So since you still have your mic on, Malika, why don't you discuss the best ways to learn? What did you have?
Okay. Well, I find that it all depends on the students. Students learn in auditory, visual. It all depends on the age of the children. I teach 3rd grade, and I've taught younger grades too. And like for kinder and 1st grade, they're more kinesthetic, they're more hands-on. And then as they get older, it seems like they're more auditory, and they're always visual, but they're more auditory when they get older, and they're more kinesthetic when they're younger, because they like to touch things. And we would take, like, I taught kinder and 1st grade, and they would take like whipped cream and draw their fingers in the whipped cream or shaving cream, or use sand to make certain letters and to see how it feels like. And then as now I teach 3rd grade, they're more auditory, but I use, they're very visual too. I use videos, brain pop videos. Lately I've been using a lot of the Khan Academy, which has been really good, videos. But I think it's a combination of all 3, kinesthetic, audio, and visual. I don't think there's just one. And what I do is like in the beginning of the school year, I usually really get to know my students individually, and I kind of hone in on exactly how they learn. And we're not allowed to group any of the kids, so we have to keep them in a grid line, grid setting. So I get to know them personally, and then I kind of learn, okay, well, he or she likes more of auditory learning. This student might like more visual. So I try to encompass all three each time I project a lesson or a subject. Let's say, like say if I'm teaching reading, I'll have a video, we'll read the book, that's visual. I'll maybe do like maybe a short video clip, and we're looking at it and we're also listening to it. And we might do like an interactive notebook at the end of the lesson, so that they can actually cut things out, color it, and glue it into their notebook. So I try to encompass all three so that I can get everybody involved. So that's about it.
That's good. Okay, if you can mute, and then we'll listen to Yvonne. Those are very good comments there about the best ways to learn. So Yvonne, let's have you share.
That is great, Malika. I like that a lot, that you are totally like doing all of that. I feel like I don't have time, unfortunately, I don't have time to really, get all of the learners involved. But so I wrote for the best way to learn, unfortunately, but I wish I did. For the best way to learn, I just wrote, for sure, just by doing. Absolutely. Like, I just think things, hands down, like that is like the most important, and like, not most important, but I mean, I feel like that's just the way that it could be the most memorable for students to learn. So just even like just modeling and by doing, I mean, like Malika said, I just feel like it goes hand in hand together. Like, you need visual, you need auditory, you need to be also doing it at the same time. And, modeling for the students, absolutely, like that definitely helps. And even, for example, for today, we were discussing a chemical change, and in the textbook, it had said that, as long as if you see light, so I always try to see light, and I just try to have them actually remember those things. Or if you feel heat, then that's when a chemical change is happening, mostly. And so what I did today was I brought in a popcorn machine, and I was able to, I did most of the modeling, but I just feel like by me doing it, they were kind of kinesthetically doing it as well, they're just getting excited and they're all watching. So I even had recorded them on Class Dojo, and the parents are just like, I love that. That was so great. So just by doing things, I feel like that's more memorable. And I feel like just by them looking back at second grade, they're gonna be like, I remember when my teacher made popcorn, and that'll be it.
Those are wonderful ways. And like you say, those things that they remember that they did, they really remember. When I was in 5th grade, we made this big, huge mural out of butcher paper. We pasted it against one of the walls, and we actually drew a mural of the history of the pioneers going west and what happened and everything. And that's the only thing I remember about 5th grade. It's the only thing I remember about 5th grade.
Wow.
And so those things about that you do, that you remember, but we were using different modalities, because we were coloring, we were listening to videos, then we'd color on the mural, and we'd hear stories, and it was just wonderful. So thank you both for contributing to this one. Innovative technologies, we talked a little bit about this, but let me give you an example of innovative technologies. When I was a teacher many years ago, I remember teaching other teachers how to use email. And they told me, several of them, not just one, told me, Ruth, I'm going to stick to the memos. I'd rather write it on a note, give it to a student, and send it over to the teacher next door, because I know it's going to get there, and I know she's going to read it right away. And that's the way we used to do things. We used to write little notes to the other teachers and have students deliver them to the other teachers. And these teachers would do things like attendance that way with a little memo note, have kids take things to, the lunch count always went on a memo over to the cafeteria in the morning so they know how many lunches to make. Well, I had to convince at least one teacher that email was going to work for them. And once she got converted, she converted the rest. It wasn't me who did it. I had to teach her and then whatever. So the innovative technology was, hey, let's all unify our school email system. So we don't all use our personal emails. See, we didn't even have school emails back then. So I got on the technology committee and they decided they'd have a school domain and all those kind of things. So think about something that's happening in your school and think, okay, I'm using a popcorn machine to show this, or I'm using something, but how would you find out what new technologies are coming up in the world? So I want to see what you wrote on your paper. So let's start this time with Yvonne. You can unmute and tell us how, or what are some of that you know of?
Well, I think tablets for sure is something that I would love to have in the classroom. And I wrote, well, something that I have at home that I would feel like is so beneficial to have in the classroom is my Google Home. So like how you were talking about the Echo. Yeah. I just feel like it's just so easy. And even like my son, he'll just be doing his homework and he's like, okay, Google, how do you spell Christmas? And it's like CHRERIS. And it goes really fast. And he's like, okay, Google, how do you spell Christmas? So he keeps like saying it repeatedly over and over and over again. But like, so for my writing process, I tell the students that the first thing that they need to do is they could, what do I tell? I say, ask a friend who's a really good speller. And then the second thing is look in the dictionary. The third thing is ask me, ask the teacher. And the last thing is I'll look on the computer if I don't know how to spell it. So I feel like instead of having to go through that process, I mean, I feel like, you know, those are definitely study skills that they definitely need to know, especially looking in the dictionary, because that's like unheard of nowadays. I'm like, way back when we had to look in encyclopedias. We couldn't go on Google and find all this information. And I was like fortunate enough to have a Britannica's at home and, you know, like whatever. So anyway, I don't know.
That's a good one.
So
thanks for sharing. That was wonderful. Now let's hear from Malika. What did you write down for innovative technologies?
For me, it would be probably laptop, maybe iPad, or just a really nice computer that kids can use that's very mobile. Mm-hmm. Right? I think I heard you last time, Yvonne. You said something about cows. We also have cows at our school, and computer on wheels, and so it's not very I can't remember the word, but it's not very mobile, I don't think, at all. It's very cumbersome. It's heavy to push, around in the classroom. The computers are really old, so it would be nice to have nice, light laptops that each child can have, and that we can keep in our classroom, because our CAL right now, we have to share with the entire third grade team. Yeah. So that would be nice to be able to just whip it out and have the kids use it whenever we need it. And as Yvonne was saying too, with technology, I guess going back to old school with the books, I love books. I love the smell of it and the feel of it in my finger. And I would have them go to the glossary, depending on the subject, go into the glossary, find out, how to spell a particular word or the definition for a word. It's just like they have to learn how to count first before they can use a calculator. So I would have them definitely use dictionary, paperback dictionary, as a technology tool also. So that's about it, though.
That's good. Thank you so much for sharing. I really appreciate what each of you had to say. And let me just add that, Malika, you already have a topic now for your key assignment 3. And that is to convince your administration that you need a set of classroom laptops, modern.
Yes.
You might want to look into specifying the type, because when you write a grant, you can specify that you want the highest processor speed, that you don't want something that's sluggish. You want something that's really going to work and everything. So that's fantastic. And then as far as Yvonne, the Google Home would be great. What you could think about, though, is how would you manage that in your classroom? How would you make it so that kids could take turns? And how would you make it so that if somebody looks up a word, that somebody else doesn't come up and look up the same word and kind of waste time? So think about those things, because management of a technology device is sometimes as important as how the kids are using it. Okay, let's go on to the next one. Implementing new technologies, and I'm taking up way too much time here on this webinar, but I think I'm getting a lot out of learning about your classroom, and you're learning a lot about each other's classrooms. But let's go into how would you implement new technologies or find resources on how to implement them. I can't remember who we started with first. Let's go back and let's start with Malika. How would you implement new technologies such as the new laptops that you're thinking about getting for your classroom?
How would I implement them? Well, I would not use it all the time, of course. I would try to use it, I would say no more than maybe 2 hours a day. And of course, it would depend on that particular subject. I would definitely use it for like social studies, science, and even math. But mostly I would think for maybe social studies. I love geography. Whichever way I can. I guess you can use it for any subject, really.
Mm-hmm. That's good. That's good.
Like Yvonne was saying, you can, for them to use it as a dictionary, words, maybe even have like I'm even thinking like a pen pal with some in a, maybe at our same school district, we can have pen pals, something. But I guess you can use it for just about everything.
That's good. That's good. And I like the way you're coming up with ideas. And you're thinking, well, maybe I could use it for this.
Yeah, because I didn't even think about it.
And make that list. Keep that list somewhere.
Okay, I will.
Idea notebook. Because then when it comes to writing a grant or saying, what are you going to use this for? And you can pick out some of those good examples, like the pen pal, and say, well, we're going to learn, about a different culture because we're going to have pen pals from Mexico or, and find out the resources of how you would do that, or who you could ask to find out how you would do that,
That's true. Thank you for telling me that, because I didn't really think about when you write a grant, they are going to ask you, well, why do you want this? What is it going to be for? So I do have to state, what is my reason?
Mm-hmm. That's right. Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, good ideas. Now let's hear from Yvonne. How would you implement new technologies?
Well, just by hearing Malika, I just feel like we work at the same school. We probably do. So if I was going along with like the whole Google Home thing, I was just writing down ideas as Malika was speaking. I feel like it would be a little difficult to manage because everybody can say, okay, Google. So that's going to be like a little bit hard. So I think I would have to definitely create boundaries, not boundaries, but like create ways to manage it, of course. So I would only say like, only teachers can do certain commands and certain things like that. But I would use it as, and this is just by using it at home. I'm sure I can look up ways that there are plenty of other ways to use them and how we would be able to implement it in the classroom. But just a few that I jotted down was to use it as a timer, because I'm always looking for my cell phone. That's another one too. Another, what was it? Another piece of technology that you use to help, with students and learning and whatnot. But I'm always looking for my phone. I'm like, where's my phone? And the kids are like, it's up over there. It's back there. Because I'm walking around all over the place. I'm just like, I'm never sitting down. Well, once in a while I do sit down. But it'll just be easy to be like, okay, Google, set timer for 5 minutes, and I'm like, okay, ready, set, go, start doing your time fact practices, whatever. And then I would maybe even use it for like music to like soothe the students, as they're working. Because I like to use my phone a lot. And I'm like, okay, I like to listen to, Christmas music during Christmas when they're doing something like, like just like a little craft or something. Like I said, I would use it for a dictionary for sure. And there's something that's called broadcasting. And so you say, okay, Google, broadcast. I usually just it's like my son or my daughter. And I'm like, tell Lucas it's time for dinner. And then you'll hear, Lucas, it's time for dinner, in like another room. So like we could use that if other people in our school had it, then I'd be able to communicate it that way. But then again, I'm thinking about it and I'm like, that probably would be very distracting. But I mean, whatever it might be, like, I don't know, if we had a break or during our lunchtime or something, I'd be like, come here really quickly, I need to show you something, or, just like whatever. I mean, we do have phones too, so anyway.
Good.
And then, but yeah, so those are just like a couple of things that I thought of.
That was very good. That was great.
Can I make a suggestion? I was thinking if, I don't know much about Echo and what is the technology called?
The Google Home.
The Google Home, yeah. I don't know if you can set like a calendar schedule, because I know in school we have like specials, right? And sometimes you're teaching and you're not aware of the time. So maybe if you can set a schedule,
Yep.
the Google Home to tell you, it's time for, in 5 minutes, it's time for,
right.
Or in, when the time is near.
Yep. And you could do like set alarm for whatever time, like 5:40.
Exactly. Yeah. That's
It's pretty cool. I'm not going to lie. I mean, my husband does work for Verizon, but I'm a little biased, of course, but.
Those are great. Thank you so much for sharing. And I hope that you're learning from each other. And as you're presenting and sharing, thinking of things as you're talking. And that's what collaboration is all about. You listen.
Malika, you want one in your classroom, right? Wouldn't that be so cool?
Oh, of course. Yes. Yeah. I would love, like, as yourself, I use my cell phone for everything too, to set the timer when the kids are doing their math facts.
Yep.
So I use it all the time also. Sometimes I'll do like those short videos, YouTube, or project it on the computer real quick, but I do use my cell phone, and it would be nice to Google.
Because I used to use like those dollar store kitchen timers, and then like they always run out of battery and like whatever. And then finally this year I got smart. I don't know what happened. I'm like, why don't I just use my phone?
Yeah.
Sometimes it looks
I don't like about using the phone sometimes.
What's that?
I had embarrassing text when I was timing the students and someone had texted me. I was like, ooh, let me turn this off. So that's the thing about using your cell phone is like personal things will come on while they.
Yeah.
Yes, that's true. That is so true.
That's why we need a Google Home.
Yes, I agree.
That is. Okay, I'm going to skip all the way back to the key assignment 3 and wanted to know, to end this with, do you have any questions about key assignment 3, either of you?
Yes, can it be a PowerPoint?
Yes, it can be a PowerPoint. However, I would also like, if you're going to do a PowerPoint, I'd also like you to write up an outline.
Okay.
These things and put it in writing as well. That's because when you, actually when I do grant proposals, sometimes I will do a PowerPoint. but mostly they're all written. And I want you to have the experience of writing this. So you can have each of these bullet points as a header and then write a little paragraph or two about each one of them. And the budget can be in a table that would be more organized, or if you would rather put it in a spreadsheet, that's okay. You can submit the spreadsheet.
Okay, so we have to do a budget. Okay, I saw that.
Mm-hmm.
Budget, okay.
So you want, if we do a PowerPoint, then you also want us to do like a write-up report.
I need a written proposal, yes.
Like how would we do that? Like an APA style, the same thing? Or
do APA style, and I have tons of examples. I'll tell you what, let me make a note of that, that I will attach an example to the next week's email reminder. And that way you can kind of see how this goes, okay?
I have no idea what a written proposal looks like.
I know, I was thinking the same thing, because I remember you had said at first that we could do a PowerPoint, but then you never had said about writing it up as well. So I'm glad that you asked that, Malika. Thank you.
That's good. And you know, when I did answer the question, as I remember, I didn't think to tell you about the written part as well. I just thought, well, if you want to make a PowerPoint too, you know, whatever. But you need to have it written up. And there's no page limit or page links. Now I'm going to send you a copy of a grant that I wrote and maybe highlight the parts that you need to put in it. But it's really important that you kind of think all these parts through, okay? All right. Any other questions?
I think an example would be wonderful for us. So we'll be good.
Yeah.
Okay.
So where do you work, Malika?
Here in Maricopa, Legacy Traditional, right?
Yeah.
And where do you work?
I work at the Chandler campus.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, Ruth. Do you mind just talk to us first?
You know what? I was gonna end the recording right now. Okay. And that way you can kind of find out about everyone, and we can just kind of chat. But this is the end of week 5 for teaching subject matter with technology. So let me stop the recording here.